We're now all set to bring to you our industry leaders' discussion on measuring ROI on diversity, on equality and inclusion, where our experts will be touching upon how one can develop a measurable and achievable D&I strategy, the various challenges that they're facing in their organizations in driving a culture of equality and inclusivity. So a lot more happening as I introduce our Power Pack panelists right here. A very warm welcome to Mr. Rajeev Chaba, President and Managing Director, MG Motors India. May I also present to you Mr. Sanjiv Navangul, Chief Executive Officer, Bharat Serums. A very warm welcome to Mr. Amit Paithankar, Managing Director, South Asia, Emerson. May I also extend a warm welcome to Mr. Anubhav Agarwal, Chief Administrative Officer and Operating Officer, India, UBS. A very warm welcome to Mr. Prasad, Chavare, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, India and Southeast Asia, Foseco. May I also present you Ms. Venu, Nuguri, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, India and South Asia, Hitachi Energy. And a very, very warm welcome to Ms. R.M. Vishakha, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, IndiaFirst Life Insurance. May I now hand over to our moderator, Ms. Neetu Vasanta, Managing Director and Partner, BCG India.
Thank you, Isha, and thank you for the very warm welcome and a big good morning to all the panelists. Very excited to be with all of you here today, especially on the topic of diversity and inclusion, which I know often gets overlooked by businesses, but so glad that you could take out time from your busy schedules to make time for this. So, the way I wanted to keep this session is, keep it very interactive. I'll start with a few questions to each of you, but I would in fact encourage all of you to come in with the answers if you'd like to add. And, just as a starting point, I know diversity and inclusion often fades out in many corporations. I myself have been pushing this agenda for many, many years. One of the core reasons is because everybody at least initially sees it as an HR agenda and not really a business agenda. So one of the key things that we ensured in this panel is we get the business leaders, eminent business leaders to come and talk about it and, not really just see it as an HR agenda. So on that note, I'm going to start with my very first question, and maybe, I'll start with you, Amit. How do you measure the return on investment on diversity and inclusion? I would just like to get some starting thoughts, and then whoever else wants to, pick this up, happy to do that.
So Neetu, it's a very loaded question because ROI is not imminent, right? I mean, you have a clear business initiative. At the end of the line, you see dollars, you see stuff on the top line, on the bottom line. What's the ROI for an activity like diversity and inclusion? And for that, we need to get into matrix of diversity and inclusion. Now, diversity, as we said right at the beginning of the panel, I mean, we can see a diverse panel. We can see it, and diversity is noticeable. We can have simple matrix on your hiring slate. Are we having so many women employees? The mix of the board, the mix of the top management, and not just the gender diversity, but diversity just in terms, I mean, India, we know diversity. It would mean, how many states are represented, and in some cases, maybe somebody from outside of the country as well. So that makes it diverse. And that's easier to measure. But D&I has an I in the strategy, which is where we start talking about ROIs. And how do you measure inclusion? I mean, somebody who is sitting in a meeting and has not opened the mouth once, is a diverse person, a person of a different origin. And, everybody looks different. This person looks different, and for some reason is not speaking. That shows that, okay, you are diverse, but you're not inclusive. That person is not feeling confident to speak up. And so in that case, I guess D is just the start of the journey, and I is the endpoint. And at I as an endpoint is when we start getting ROIs. So to give you an example, in a given meeting for a brainstorming for an R&D session, let's say I'm ideating on new products, looking at various options that are there and just creating and coming out with something. Did I come up with something which is groundbreaking, which is not thought about? And then we can actually give it wings and make it possible to happen.
Yeah.
That's the ROI. And so how differentiated are your business models? How differentiated is your way to serve your customers? Are you the best? More and more we'll find that diverse and inclusive cultures will be able to provide that much better than if that is absent.
Very well put. Thank you, Amit. I think it's personally a very tough question to gauge, but yeah, thank you for your thoughts. Maybe on a similar note, and I move on to Sanjiv. Sanjiv, what do you think it's even important to measure the ROI on diversity and inclusion? Will it be helpful in any manner? And what are your thoughts on going about it?
I think Amit mentioned it rightfully that we have metrics to measure maybe an entry point or measure some numbers, but understanding and developing culture on diversity and inclusion is a very different story, and that is where the ROI comes from. And I'll give you a simple example that I used to run Merck and Company, or Merck Sharp and Dome as it is called outside in India. And I had 9 men and 1 woman in the management team. And our 2-hour meeting used to last 1.5 hours, and we used to be out for a lunch or a drink. I moved to run North Asia and moved to Philippines, and I had 6 women and 4 men. And a 3-hour meeting used to last 8 hours. But when I measure the quality of decision making that happened in India versus what happened in North Asia, I think the quality of decision making was far, far superior in North Asia. So, if you start measuring time taken for a meeting versus quality of decision making, you start understanding where the whole story of diversity and inclusion comes from. And there is a lot of unconscious bias that we come with when we try and measure anything. I'll give you a simple example from my healthcare industry. $198 billion was spent on healthcare research globally last year. If you take oncology out, or actually literally just breast cancer out, only 1% of the research money was spent on women-related specific diseases. So, I'm taking it more on a gender route to discuss this point, but this is a story of how cultures need to inculcate habit of understanding that in whatever we do, we need everybody to feel included. And the way to somehow go about it is, it's a little more qualitative in the way we do some of these things, but we need to understand that, look, as you have any meeting or you are having any function, does anybody come to the meeting saying that I did not know, I have not heard of this, I heard this for the first time? These are common comments in management meetings that you hear. And the moment you hear that, you know that there is somebody in the team who is not inclusive, or who is not ensuring that basic temperament to understand that everybody needs to feel part of a decision-making process is important. The second important thing is dissonance or having disagreement. If you have meetings or if you have situations where there are hardly any disagreements and people just go along with the decision, clearly your inclusivity is far low. So there are very easy ways to check inclusivity in any corporate or in a family setting too. It's very, very easy to detect these things. The problem is trying to solve those. I think we might sense them, some of those. We sometimes ignore trying to solve them because we feel it is more convenient to let things happen the way they are.
Yeah.
And that is the leadership story. So if you really see diversity and inclusion from a ROI or from a measurement yardstick, it's about how and what kind of leadership we show to ensure that we are very conscious and actions are taken in a conscious way for everybody to feel that this is an important story.
Very, very well put. Thank you. I think on a similar note, I would like to probe a little further because the importance of measuring ROI is we all hint towards it, but it never gets tied up to business objectives. I think Amit started with that. At the end of the day, we have to deliver business outcomes, and somewhere D&I, is just another layer on top, but it never directly translates or never gets tied up to business objectives. Anubhav, I'm going to shift gears to you. How does one develop a strategy for D&I that is both measurable as well as achievable? Any tips and tricks for us?
Well, I'm here to learn tips and tricks from the rest of the panelists, but so this is obviously it's difficult, or rather I would say it's equal parts difficult as well as achievable as well as easy. Now, the tone from the policy or tone about diversity has to come from the top. Unless the organization believes that this is something we want to do, it is going to be very difficult to inculcate it in all aspects. So like we have started something like, we kind of try to do away with the regular objectives and goals, and we move to impact. We want to measure impact. So it's not, so let's say that did you achieve this percentage of diversity in your workforce and all. It's not just about that, but what was the impact? Now, the tone has to come from the top, but then we have to take the policy and apply it to how or what is typical for our country, our city, our geography, right? We have to look at what are the demographics, what are the laws, the environment, the markets, all kinds of things. And I have to look at the policy or do it in two ways. One would be the numbers, the straight, simple numbers. In fact, I was having this discussion with a colleague, and she was telling me about we have to make it like for every person with a team of this size, based on the diversity in their country, they have to achieve this level of diversity. And I said, you're just making it about numbers. And is that what you should be doing? Is that really going to achieve what we want to do? Are we getting the right people? And she said, yes and no. Yes, it is about, we have to do it because it is, if we don't force it, we are not going to get anything. So there is equal parts of forcing the issue, as well as, you have to go and change the organization. It is about changing the way people think. Like for a business person, you explain to them the business case about what diversity brings to the table, and that, that is how they will accept. It has to be about acceptance, about education, about taking feedback. You can't just say that this is the policy, this is what you have to have 30%, yeah, go take it. It's not like that. You have to look at the policy, you have to take feedback, you have to look at the environment, and then try to apply what is right for you. I found that one bit quite interesting. I think Sanjiv mentioned about his meetings, that how the duration of meetings. Now, I do agree. I have actually changed my role quite recently. And before that, my team, I would not call it diverse. And with respect to all my fellow accountants, we were basically all accountants. And, we had a very sort of, this is how we think, right? Was it done last year or not? And I remember that any discussion we had, there was virtually no challenge. So I said, let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. There was no challenge. There was no discussion. Meetings, set for 30 minutes would be over in 5. But now I have a far more diverse team. I have, gender, background, where they come from, what cities, states, all kinds of things, languages. So it's quite diverse now. The discussions do go on longer. So I end up working till maybe, a few more hours than I'm usually used to. But it's, I feel that the quality of decision has improved so much.
Whatever so on that note, sorry, please go ahead.
No, that's fine. Whatever we're trying to do has improved so much now.
Anubhav, that's a great point. But on that note, maybe this is where I want to invite all of you. What is the one business outcome that you've seen change as a part of, better diversity and inclusion? Because we are all alluding to stuff. We're saying, meetings go on longer. I'm assuming that's in the spirit of, making a joke rather than taking it seriously. The quality of decision making has gone up. But did any of you or any of your firms ever measure this in any tangible format? Because that's the one struggle that we have in, corporate India today. Yes, Vishakha,
Yeah, Neetu. Implementing and I'm going to stay focused on gender diversity right now. And I'm saying implementing a gender diversity policy by a woman leader creates so much of bias. That's one challenge that I have faced. So I have had to kind of, in order to quell the rebellion, just like the way actually, Amit and Anubhav mentioned that they have women challenging. Trust me, when it's a woman leader, every man in the room thinks he can put her down. And you face that much more, that natural obedience that comes into authority when there is a male leader. You don't have that natural obedience to a woman leader. So you do get that challenges easily. So every person in the sales team was, why should we hire women? They will get married, they will get pregnant, we will have to give them maternity leaves. And what about my targets? And we are primarily a sales organization. We have, in our 3,500, 2,800 salespeople. We actually then put in place a measurement parameter. And I said, okay, we're going to track. What is it? And you saw we had to prove in measurable terms that the productivity of a woman salesperson is higher than a male salesperson. And it pained me so much that we had to prove that kind of a case to get equal opportunity for a woman. But yes, Neetu, we did that.
Right.
It was sad that we had to do it, but we did it to prove that, guys, you can hire women. They will be able to deliver. We will figure out. I had to reduce targets for the sales teams if they had a woman who went on maternity leave in order to make sure that the managers would hire people. And yes, we brought in those productive parameters. Sorry, Rajeev.
Yeah. So Neetu, I would like to say, like, I'm an MG, it's the automotive industry, and frankly, very few females join automotive industry. So we started with a target of 30%. I'm happy to say we are at 37%, and our vision is to become 50% by 2023. So it's a story. How did we do it? Blah blah blah. But some measurements. When we were hiring females, we said let's hire females for welding also. No, they cannot do welding. So we did blind test. 1 year trained male, 1 year trained female. We did the blind welding test. Guess what? Welding of female welder was better. Now we have a direct run rate, means how many cars you can make from the first station to the last station without any defect. With the more diverse gender background, my direct run rate has gone up by 5% in 1 year. Okay, defects. How do you identify defects? So a painted car surface, welding surfaces, identification of defects has become much better by female workforce than the male workforce. So we have lots of such things which we are measuring. And actually now, thanks to all that, demand is coming from the team to have more women workforce. And that's why I'm quite confident that we would be 50%, the first plant globally in car manufacturing, 50% female workforce.
Brilliant, Rajeev. That's so heartening to hear. Thank you. I would encourage others to come in. Yes, Prasad.
Yeah. So I think my fellow colleagues have already added. The only thing that I would say that we can go on talking about ROI, but it's like a quality field that it's not an optional, but it's mandatory, like an oxygen. So we can go on discussing about how do we calculate ROI. But having said that, for many decades we have been talking about it. Still, as an industry, we are not over with this topic. So that suggests that we still need to do a lot about it. Just the way Vishakha said, and I think Rajeev said, on the similar lines, I would like to bring the example of people with special needs. So like Rajeev, we are a manufacturing company and typical industrial B2B organization, very traditional. So one of the things that we did is that in the quality area, we actually had visually challenged people. And actually, the quality in the packaging that they brought was far better than the people who were actually doing. So that was an eye-opener for us as an organization, that we had our own biases that people with special needs will never be able to work in this area. And finally, we were able to do this. On the similar lines, what Vishakha talked about, industrial B2B company is totally dominated in terms of sales by men. And when we got women employed, we not even had issues within the organization, but also had issues from our customers because they were not feeling very open about discussing the factors with the women employed because they're all vendors were full of men. So guiding and coaching and making that sure that it happens really requires, I think, leadership abilities to ensure that we can do this. And first, as a leader, we need to remove our own biases. And I think then everything can be possible or will be possible.
That's very beautifully put. In fact, I work in automotive, steel, and real estate sectors, all three very notorious for being poor on diversity. So I do this. I mean, in fact, I was just joking around with a colleague saying, for the last 10 years, I've not had a female client counterpart in any of my engagements. And it's hilarious because at one end, it feels good to be the only woman in a room full of men, but many times it's not as much fun. But yes, I think, Prasad, to your point, we've been at it for a long time. My personal view is still people believe that it is good for business. Not everybody will subscribe to the idea. And if you internally don't feel that it's something that is eventually adding value to your business, to your own life and making life better, then you'll always see it as a, social agenda or something that, is maybe good for the world, but personally not good for you. So the examples that you took, the example that Rajeev took, I think it's phenomenal, because if you do see that a diverse workforce is making business better, then everyone wants it. I mean, it's just as, yes, Vishakha, sorry, please go ahead.
Just wanted to respond to your point, Neetu, on saying that we need to prove a case, for women to be given a chance. And I think that's unfair. I think, honestly, we are operating under so much of biases that I think some biases can only be bulldozed. I don't think we would have had directors, female directors on the boards, if not for SEBI and company law board making that change. Once they're there, we're able to measure their impact. But if they're not even there, how are you going to make a case for them to be there? So I think some stuff on diversity needs to be mandated for them to be given a chance to prove. Otherwise, they're never going to get that chance. Yeah. So I was still there where we do not have enough people to build a business case to justify. I think we still need to get more people to be able to build a business case. Perfect. What they say as a adequate sampling size, right?
Yeah. I know Amit, Sanjiv, both of you also wanted to come in. Maybe I'll request Sanjiv. I had seen your hand earlier, and then Amit.
So, Prasad, you touched a very raw nerve with me. I am a trustee at a blind school, and in the beginning when I joined there as a trustee, I used to get shocked with the skills. Over a period of time, I have now tried to understand the fact that skills and learning abilities do not differentiate between gender, caste, religion, physical challenge. It doesn't differentiate at all. And for us to accept that and understand that, look, you should not get shocked, or you should not get surprised by any of these things, is a very, very important behavioral aspect that all leaders will have to understand. The other thing I feel in this, many of the times our discussion on diversity and inclusion actually excludes one important factor on equality. I think moving this discussion to equality, that everybody has an equal opportunity to do what they need to do, is something that we miss out, and we end up continuously talking about it as something needs to be done to uplift somebody. No, I don't think it is about uplifting anybody. It is about ensuring that there is equality all around. And that is something, as a philosophical story, I think if we don't keep talking in our management teams, I don't think the culture percolates. So that's something which I have seen. And I do agree with Vishakha on affirmative action, that there is something that you need to keep doing. I used to do that with the sales team, saying that every sales team, if you don't have a woman in your team, your incentives will be dropped by 10%. I'll dock you 10% of your incentive just because you're not making a diverse team. And later on, they saw the benefit, because it's a more well-behaved, compliant, proper team if there is more diversity to the team. So there are things that affirmative actions are also necessary at the same time.
Thanks, Sanjiv. Amit, I know you wanted to go next. Can I request you to come in?
Sure. Thanks, Neetu. I'm going to take a leaf out of what Sanjiv said and what Vishakha said. Sanjiv, I pretty much like you. In one of my previous roles was looking after a company in Philippines, and the diversity there is, we need a slightly different matrix out there, where we need a little more males in the team, but and that teaches you a few things. The team that reports into me now is also majority females, and let me paint the picture of where we stand. There's so much of change happening. I know we have Rajeev here from NG. There's the focus on innovation required for industry at large, whichever industry we represent, is very, very high. I represent a sector which is moving and transitioning very, very quickly. There are energy transitions happening. Sustainability is extremely important, and new technologies are needed to make sure that we are a sustainable society, we are a sustainable company. And when innovation is important, and that's what I said, sometimes, again, taking a leaf out of what Rajeev said, some measures and metrics are very immediate, right? You have a diverse team, the quality of paint, for instance, gets better. That's an immediate gratification. However, we need to give time for diversity and inclusion, and this is where I agree with what Vishakha said. We first need to believe that this is going to make a change, and it is going to make a change for the long term. And what is going to happen is, as we have more and more diverse teams, we have seen that the innovation quotient of a particular team just keeps changing. And you are able to come out with solutions which are differentiated, which are very different, which we would have never thought about, never ever thought about. And it just brings that. And I would like to once again emphasize, it's not just diversity, it's inclusion. It's every member in the team feeling that I can contribute at this point in time. I don't have a problem. Nobody will call me stupid for making that suggestion.
Yeah, if I can add,
Please.
If I can add to Amit, we come from an engineering background of a global company. We always try to make the equations. So as you talked rightly, Amit, we said diversity plus collaboration is a great innovation, and great leadership plus diversity and inclusion is the competitive advantage. And we have seen across the geographies, across the world, how this equation will be really fitting into that.
Very glad to hear that. Good. Let me move on. That was a very engaging question. Vishakha, I'm going to move on to you next. What do you think are the biggest challenges in driving a culture of equality and diversity?
I think almost all the panelists have spoken about it, but I would like to kind of take a slightly different, one step backwards before I answer your question. How do you define equality? Equality itself is a very, very wide concept, and it's extremely subjective and nuanced. Equality includes equitability. It includes a judgment of what is equal. It's just not a predefined formula. Equality is not a mathematical equation. It is a very subjective and context-based decision-making matrix. It's not about treating everybody the same, right? I mean, it has a certain amount of uniformity. It has a certain amount of equitability, and an ability to know which one to apply where. So it's really not a single factor. Equality is about judgment. So the term, I believe, inclusivity was brought in to provide that nuance to equality. Okay, and now I believe we have simply shifted the debate on what is inclusive. Okay, and I believe inclusive is also about non-discrimination. So it's about ridiculousness of having a hare and a tortoise to have a race. I mean, really, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to evaluate? How is it making sense? It's neither equal nor inclusive. So similarly, if I take a more corporate example, right? If there's a 5 feet counter at the dining hall, do we start with why is it there? Considering that it does not meet the requirements of people with different heights, disabilities, or capabilities, or do we work around to meet those requirements of inclusivity? Now, my concern is that when we're picking up a single point on equality and a single point on inclusivity, we are actually trying to flatten a debate, which is very, very contoured, and which is where judgment, leadership are the ones that are going to make an impact to the D&I agenda, which is why leadership is so emphasized to ensure that a D&I agenda can be implemented, because it is all about judgment.
Thank you, Vishakha. Very, very insightful. Rajeev, let me shift gears to you. Give us some tips on how a company should get started on the agenda of D&I.
Yeah, so, for me personally, and for us in MG India, diversity is part of our core. So when we started this company, and we have the advantage than some of other guys on the panel that we had to start from scratch. Okay, so MG India, we just established it as a startup. So we said D. We came out with a culture of the company called SPEED, S-P-E-E-D, and S was startup culture, P was passion, E for execution, E for ease of doing business, D for diversity. So it started with our core value, D, diversity. And within diversity, we said, hey, auto, non-auto, within auto, two-wheeler, four-wheeler, within four-wheeler, all kinds of companies, not only Maruti or GM or Ford or VW, and then gender diversity. So I think it starts from the top. Either the board or the CEO has to believe in this, faith in this, has to be passionate about it. And that's how it starts, I think. So then you need to take your functional leaders, your top reporters into confidence. And there, I think you need to do a lot of dialogue. You know, for us, and in general, I think it cannot be tokenism, you know, and starts with a mandate, what Vishakha said, or dictate. So we said 30% is the starting point. And why? Because there are lots of stories. And luckily, you know, I have traveled a lot and I've worked a lot in many countries. And I said, no country can progress till women become the part of formal economy of a country. You know, so it starts with that. And if we want, and we are fortunate guys in this, all the guys on the panel, that we are sitting on a powerful seat. We are not powerful, our seat is powerful. So we can do lots of things, you know. So it starts with a clear policy. And then you need to clear vision, and belief. And then you have to have lots of supporting policies. What Vishakha said, the starting point is, oh, she will get married or she'll get pregnant and blah, blah, blah. But these are starting points. There are many, many barriers. The male mindset, unfortunately, I think the changing that is not easy, you know. So there you have to have lots of communication, and not as a training session once a month or once in 3 months. It is every day. You know, we are not talking about, if you want to have inclusion, we are not talking about maternity leave. We are talking about maternity management. You know, once a person becomes pregnant, how do you handle that person? When during pregnancy, after pregnancy, work, promotion, salary increase, this has to be managed. It's not only just give them leave, you know. So the whole thing is about engagement, communication, and by the way, there are a lot of subtle things. We have all kinds of people in our company, and you know, we all know, you know, who will say, yes, we need to have this number, but they don't mean it. Their body language, the cooler talk, male clubs, evening clubs, they'll say girls cannot drive. Okay, girls cannot go for 2 days program, this and that. So, you know, you need to watch each and everything, you know, and once you have measurement, as I was saying, and then when you start, countering that, then people start believing it. Then you need to create success stories. So we have the first welder, first painter, first press woman, first tire assembly person, first driver, first test driver, you know. So the moment you start making these cases and people start seeing, I'll give you another example that you need to go deep dive. In certain teams, you see there is no female employee, okay? And that, by the way, it's a male bastion, you know, it's like army infantry on the border, you know. So you need to, how do you do that? And then you will go into the details and you find out, hey, that person actually who's the boss, you know, probably wife doesn't work, mother never worked, doesn't have daughters, and he doesn't believe in this concept. So then you have to say, okay, take one female employee. You know, I'm giving you extra headcount. One female employee, you take it. And that's who you start. So I think it's a very deep topic. You need to go into all kinds of things, and it's an everyday topic in the initial 2-3 years. Then it becomes a momentum. And then, like as I said, we have become 30. We started with 30, we are 37. And now the team is embracing. We should be 50, hopefully, in the next 1.5 years.
Wow. I know, Vishakha, you have a question for Rajeev. Would you want to take it, or I'm happy to take it on your behalf as well?
Rajeev, thank you. Honestly, I the first person I've actually heard acknowledging the male mindset of bias. I'm very curious to understand how do you deal with accusations of favoritism and bias? You know, being a male, I mean, I have to deal with it being a woman without any of the additional contours to it. But how do you deal with those kind of accusations?
So there are all kinds of talk happen initially, and you know, there was a joke, and just it's coming down now, but there's a joke that इस कंपनी में तो लड़कियों को ही लेते हैं और लड़कियों का ही प्रमोशन होता है, right? It's the other way around, you know. So you know, so here we need to have very standard recruitment policies and promotion policies, and you know, we keep talking about it, you know, that that we are not doing any favor to any woman by hiring her. We are not doing any favor, right? It is merit-based and promotions are merit-based. In fact, now we have gone to the next step that where our recruitment is going to, our resumes, our job profiles are gender neutral based, you know, and we are recommending the recruiters to give us the resume without telling male or female. Let people go, let people know, you know, what's the merit of this person, you know. So we are going to the next level now here. So I think it's not an easy journey. And by the way, by no means I'm suggesting MG is a great place for women, because we still have lots of challenges. You know, the middle management, seniorish management is the biggest block for any change, and they register a lot. Younger generation, no problem. Top guys, they believe no problem. The middle management is a huge issue, you know. So we also have lots and lots of challenges, frankly, Vishakha. By no means we are done, but it's a everyday issue, and I would say that every year we are converting lots and lots of people towards you know, D&I side.
Just to add to Rajeev, I think, you know, we are also same manufacturing as automobiles. So we also face exactly same. Now we are really driving the diversity and inclusion as a diversity 360. And we also get this accusation. And fully agree with Rajeev what was talking about. The middle management, what we call as a cementing layer of the organization, is extremely important. If we are able to break that, then, you know, we are able to drive all of our initiatives and strategies in that. So we have, in our organization, we take this as a cultural change, you know, like how we used to drive the safety and integrity, which is a paramount importance. We never look other way when it comes to the safety, integrity. We are exactly driving this diversity in 360 because we need them on board. The cementing layer of the organization is the bulk of the mass in any organization. And that's where is a change required to make this, you know, happen in that. And we're really driving that very hard. And it's not easy way to, you know, overcome that particular layer of the organization.
Very interesting. I'm going to shift gears to Prasad. Prasad, slightly simpler one for you, but you know, how does diversity and inclusion work together? I know we've heard many starting thoughts on that, but just wanted to get your pointed input.
Yeah. So first, I'll just talk about, you know, that diversity and inclusion are interconnected concept, but they are not interchangeable. So we all of us talked about gender diversity and people with physical needs and LGBTQ, color, nationality, regional. So as Amit said, it's very easy to measure this, but however, there is no measure for inclusion. But the inclusion is all about, you know, how well the contributions and perspective of these different categories of people are valued and integrated into an environment. That means these people need to have a say to drive the policy and strategy, you know, of the organization. So in my mind, you know, inclusion is a culture where people feel connected about it, and they encourage the teamwork. So just to give some examples, and I'll give 2-3 examples over here. And first start with myself, and again, in general, personal life example. So a short story, you know, we went to watch as a family Disney, and there were a lot of crowd, and all, you know, I was standing on a step, and my wife and my small child, I'm a kid, they were just standing beside me, but they were not able to see the things procession that was happening. So that means I had to first get my wife onto the first step, and then I had to pick up my child and put it on my shoulder and say, hey, now you can see the things. What we are trying to do in that example, where we are trying to bring the equity. So in the similar way, if I can do this for my family, why is that I'm not able to do this in my own organization? So my own organization is also my family. So that means I need to understand how these groups are thinking and what are their thought process. So one of the things that was useful to me is when we started our journey in India 12 years ago, we established, I know women affinity group is a very commonly used word, but I think I was the first employee of women affinity group. And I think I got some teasing from my male people as well. Hey, why you are joining this? But then I realized that no, joining that really helped me to understand the perspectives of women and what are the problems that they were facing with. And it was also an opportunity for me to manage the talent effectively and give them the right roles. The third example that comes to my mind is, I think, like Rajeev and Venu, we are into B2B manufacturing company, and all our manufacturing plants are like 30 to 40 kilometers away from the city. So we were thinking that, hey, just the way somebody said that, I think Rajeev said, all the promotions are happening and women are getting promoted, right? But then you are not giving them challenging assignment. So one of the things that we thought about is, hey, let's run the B shift with women employees, with women managers, women supervisors, everything managed by women. Would we be able to do this? And we were in the area, somewhere in the central part of India, where this thing was very unique. And for the first time, we wanted to do this. So when we actually started doing it, we realized that there were a lot of, we were diverse, but we were not inclusive because our safety, our infrastructure, our policies were not conducive by which we could implement this effectively. So that means we need to have a woman employee, woman person, attendant in the bus, probably woman driver in the bus, which can take them to the site. We also wanted to see that, we wanted to get their families to the plant and showcase them to their father, to their husband, that how safe the environment is. And that's how, we were able to, implement the B shift in this. So what it says that we need to have those representation at the right level, in the right departments. And I think everybody, Raju and Venu said, across all the levels, so that their say comes to our level and we are able to, act on it. The other example, we also have unions, and this is just the last example. And in the unions, we always see that, this is the area which is dominated by men. So how do we get women representation in union? So that there is an equal perspective about, are we really catering to their requirements? And I think that is also something challenging for us, because we are done with the board representation. We are done with probably the top level leadership. But all across, are we really open to think about those aspects? And are we coaching our team members and guiding them that why it is necessary to do it is something question that remains for us to take it forward.
That's very insightful. Thank you, Prasad. Venu, my last question for you, and then we'll have sort of a more open discussion. We spoke about, you all particularly invested in the DEI initiatives, but how do you get the entire company, including the leadership, wedded to the agenda? How do you go about it?
Yeah, thank you, Neetu, for simple question. So straight answer is a combination of all the speakers who talked about it. Summation of all that is the answer. But just give you perspective from us, we are a global company, Hitachi Energy. Now earlier we were part of ABB. One of the things we always used to be very proud, every a meeting of even a 15, 20, we always have at least minimum 10 to 12 different passport holders, different nationalities. We always used to be proud about it. I'm part of the global executive committee. So we are around 15 people and we are around 11 passport, 11 different nationalities. We bring a different mindset, different cultures and different, paradigm things, all sort of things, we used to be very proud about it. But when we looked at back and we said, yeah, is this only the diversity we are looking at? We need to do much beyond the cultural diversity, So when we started our new journey as a Hitachi Energy, when we carved out from ABB 2 years back, we kept diversity is the center of our growth strategy. we call it the diversity 360 at the center of our strategy. Previously, we always used to look at the strategy means, what kind of sales, revenue, margin, EBITDA, etc. But then this is the cornerstone of our strategy in that. We have a very clear, tangible strategies, tangible targets, short term, mid term, and the long term. So in the short term, in each major geography, what is that we need to move the needle and what actions we need to take. For example, in India, I give an example of India, when we started this new company and we also listed company and then we need to set up our board, etc. As Vishakha was saying, we did not look at only what is the SEBI mandate. We looked at it, what are the capable, directors available in that. We went beyond the mandate the moment we found that the directors are capable. We have two, female directors in our board who are very, very capable, very accomplished, and they are really adding lot of support to the board in that. So that's how we set the direction from the board, and then the executive committee. All the executive committee members have undergone unconscious bias. We always have the unconscious bias, whether we like it or not. That's the thing in that. How do we put it? Each one of us, what kind of thing? But we must make a conscious efforts to take that out. It's not going to be easy, but we have to make something needle to move, and that's exactly what we are doing in that. And as Rajeev said, whenever we appoint a female talent for a leadership role, we always get the criticism. And in the town halls, people, a lot of people write in anonymous these days, right? Why is it because somebody is just because we need to be a female to get a top leadership position? These are the questions we get, in our town halls in that. But we take that head on in that. It's not about he or she. It is about the capability. It is about the meeting those kind of requirement in that. Then we also looked at, because we are a manufacturing company, we have unionized employees and far away from the cities. And we said, first we create the environment, environment, like we created the creches, we created the washrooms, restrooms, etc., which is required for the, atmosphere with that. And also the transportation, safe transportation is important, that when the people work in the late hours or the late shifts, they need to go back safely on that. And third one is many of our women engineers. We have in India, we have around 6,000 employees, and we have quite a good number of more than 20% is our women engineers. They travel also extensively for customer visits, not only in India, across things. So we have created again, worked up, ensure that they are able to travel freely, able to set up our hotels. These kind of things are all extremely important. Then we created the culture in that. Then that alone will not be sufficient, right? We continue to ensure that the needle keep moving into the right direction in that. And as some of the panelists said, the success stories. We said that diversified teams have brought better results, better outcomes. And that's exactly what whole organization is looking forward in that. We are seeing definitely the needle, but this is a cultural change. Then we now look at the culturally, how we have been driving like our other imperatives, strategic imperatives like a safety, integrity, and quality, which are paramount importance when it comes to us, because we are in the business of providing a mission critical technology to our customers. And the same way we have been driving it. And we are seeing a very good results across the geography, not only in India, but across the world in that. So it is completely top down and bottom up exercise. Top down, we set the goal and we do the walk the talk. And as some of the panelists said, it's extremely important that what is the message we're going to give in a different forums and different things is what people are looking forward to that. And we do the walk the talk and drive also the bottom of cultural change in that. If we are able to do this, and I'm sure diversity and inclusion is really indeed a great innovation, we can do that.
Thank you, Venu. That was a great summary as well as great thoughts coming from you. One question for all of you. I know we've discussed many wonderful practices that you did. This is going to be a bit of a rapid fire question, right? What is the one thing that you're personally proud of that each of you have done in your organizations or your personal change that you've brought about in yourself, which you think was a defining moment for you as a diversity and inclusion champion? Maybe I'll give everybody 30 seconds and then we can go in any order. But that one moment, just the one personal example. Yes, Rajeev, please.
Setting up success stories, frankly, to drive the agenda. All of us, I think, leaders on this panel, I think probably we believe in this thing, and that's why we are here. So how do you create success stories? Head of administration in Gurgaon office. Obviously it was a no-brainer, has to be a male, can go to the police station at any point of time, raat mein kuch problem ho gaya, can go blah blah blah. I said no, let's try to get a female employee. So I asked the question to this female employee at the interview, Bhagwan na kare, in the night at 1 o'clock there's a fire in the office, what will you do? I have done it. Okay, my boss is coming from UK at 4 o'clock and you have to go to the airport to pick him up. Well, I have done it, she said. And she said, don't hire me, Rajeev, because I'm a woman, okay? You tell me what competence you require. And by the way, we hired her and she's one of the best employees in our company as of now. Welding, all my expats and all the local leaders said they cannot do welding. So creating these examples, we created the first female welder in the country in automotive, in the four-wheeler industry. Okay, so creating these successful examples has been the biggest satisfaction for me.
Thank you, Rajeev. Very inspiring. I know, Prasad, you had your...
Sure. So I think on the similar lines, the example that I am proud of, I know a lot of things that we all have done in the organization, but I would just like to take this topic into a broader topic in terms of community work. So all the things that I've talked about, I'm proud of, but there's one thing that I was also very proud of is we as a team worked in a community project in which we took the model village and took 10 women from that village and helped them to establish the business on their own. And it was a business on women hygiene products. So all our men employees and women employees worked together to establish that business. Even today, whenever I go to that town, I tend to visit that. And when I see the smile on their faces, I get a lot of satisfaction looking at their smiles. So that was my big achievement on that front.
Thanks, Prasad. Amit, I know I saw your hand up next, so maybe I'll request you.
Thanks, Neetu. I'm going to give it a slightly different flavor. I have been for quite a long time a typical type A male personality, go in and have been in leadership roles for too long. So, you do tend to dominate meetings, and that's the stereotypical leader that you have. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that I try to do consciously is in a meeting, really monitor the amount of time that I'm speaking, even if I am the topmost leader in that meeting, and make sure that everybody is voicing their opinion. And that way kind of totally changed my leadership style. It's a journey, but I think it's very, very important for inclusion.
Yeah, it's always here to get good reflections, stories. Thank you, Amit. That was very inspiring. Vishakha, I know you also had your hand up.
I think, the most tangible one is I created policies where the tangible objections were removed. Oh, she goes on leave, what happens? Okay, I'm reducing your targets and stuff like that. I think another thing which I did, which for me was a very conscious and very difficult thing to do, was I overcame my own natural reservations and modesty to actually talk to a group full of senior leadership team members on the issues of menstruation, on the issues of pregnancy. I had to actually open up and tell them, guys, do you even know the issues of lactation post childbirth when a mother comes to work within 4 months? Do you know she needs privacy to go express herself because she can't control it? I think these were issues most of these men hadn't even been, oriented to from their own families. It took a lot from me to be able to really overcome that and share my own personal incidences of sitting in an office and, having an expression of milk, right? Because that happens to women. So I think I did that, and I brought in a lot of sensitivity into the senior leadership team.
Thank you, Vishakha. Very, very helpful. Anubhav, I know you had your hand up as well.
So maybe in my case, I would say that I'm perhaps I was lucky that I had extremely strong female influence right from my mother to my wife. I'm sure if she's hearing this, and and sister and so on. I mean, I remember that at any point in time in my life, if any of us had even suggested that there is something which a male can do better than a female, that would have been disastrous for us. So I think we've always seen that equality, and that has continued. And that is something which I have never, or I'd like to believe that I've never seen the difference. Like, it's always been a person that I'm working with, right? It has never been male or female. And that is something that I was able to convince at least one member, right? Which I thought was, that was an achievement, that coming from a completely, like, I don't want to hire a lady because, as everybody has said, oh, she lady, then next step is marriage, then next step is pregnancy, and then I'll lose the resource for so long. And to convince that person that, look, you are hiring this person and see what she's bringing to the table, and evaluating the multiple people that, we shortlisted, and then convincing that, see, this is the one, and this is the reason why you should be hiring. And though it was a temporary resource for a couple of years, but they still thank me that, you stepped in, we hired her, and she made so much of a difference to our work, to our job, to our organization.
Thank you, Anubhav. Very helpful. Venu, I know you had your hand, and then probably I'll call on Sanjiv. Yes.
Thank you. So let me just give a 2 example about this. Personally were involved. One is that around 12 years back, when I was running a plant, head of a plant in Bangalore near Pinya, where in that plant more than 3,000 people used to work and close to 250 are women employees. So we always wanted to improve it, but we are not doing it. Then once we started that, we will have a meeting with them, and every quarter I used to have a meeting with all the women employees. So all the 200 people over a discussion and a high tea, discussing, informally understanding the issues, etc., and where are the challenges, things like that. So believe me, there's a lots of things came during that informal meeting. There's various things where are impediments for the women to perform, or women to, work in a factory atmosphere in that. And it's not only taken the list of the big list, but also, we are showing them how each list, each issue is being tackled, being provided the solutions in that. So the first 2 meetings every quarter, we used to have the meetings, and then we used to have a big list. But then we see more and more, the issues are being resolved and being provided to the best of those women employees. Have really given a more, people started talking, people started, saying that how these issues being resolved are helping the people, helping the women, especially women employees, even performing even better. That's the one. And the second thing is, we are, as I told you, we are a core engineering. There's always a mindset from the middle management that we don't get the women in these kind of things in that. So what we said, and we discussed with one of the NGO called Shikshana. So we are working as part of the CSR Women in Engineering. So every year, we identify around close to 100 women in engineers who are the lower economic strata. And then we start developing, we will be financially supporting, not only financially, many of our leaders who are spending time with the women with that kind of set of batches, engaging with them in the soft skills, etc. The idea is that as soon as they complete the course, we will absorb into our organizations in that. So this is a chain, what we have started in that, women in engineering with the NGO Shikshana in that. So all these things, we believe that would help us in really bringing the complete diversity into our organization.
Thank you, Venu. Sanjiv, just maybe the last one for you, and then we are ready to wrap up.
Very, very quickly, when I was launching cervical cancer vaccine in India, I, going through the disease, understanding that a woman suffers from this incorrigible disease, but the male is the cause of the disease. So first of all, we built a whole women team to ensure that this product is handled only by women. But we also ensured every male to talk in the community from the company to say that we are guilty, and therefore try and sponsor low-income women to get the vaccine with their own personal money and not with the company money, to ensure gender sensitivity increases in the organization, and that worked very well in the organization.
Wow, thank you, Sanjiv. I think very bold changes all of you have driven, and great personal stories and reflections. I am aware that we are right at the nick of time, but thank you, everybody. This has been a very, very insightful and refreshing discussion for me, because as I said, I also am privy to a lot of core sectors where I see very, very few women and even fewer women champions. So I am just feeling very proud that today I'm sitting with a bunch of people who are actively taking this up as their personal priority, and living life by exemplifying that diversity and inclusion is good for business, and it is an important CEO's agenda, not just some social service that we are all bound to do. And I take away many, many things. Vishakha, your point on, not everything has to be justified. I completely agree with you. But there were wonderful examples of even when it has come to that, there have been success stories, and we've seen business getting better and better with the diversity and with the inclusion agenda. I also take back the difference between equality and equity. I think that was a beautiful example where you said that, you're sure you're recruiting everyone, but are the chances of success equal are you creating special situations so that the chances of success are maximized for everybody and not just that 5 feet counter where, you expect everybody to reach out to. And great introspection on, is your personal style, Amit, you made that point, coming in the way of making it a more inclusive workspace. So I think lovely, pointers for me and a truly enriching session. So thank you one and all for making this a very exciting session. Thank you.
Well done, Neetu. Well done.
Thank you.